folks who are interested in catching up afterwards. And if anyone wants to learn more, we can get some resources out. And I'm hoping that this can be a little bit informal as we can be over the internet and doing virtual presentations. As you can see and I'm just a couple of housekeeping things. I'll not be seeing the chat. So if you are putting questions in the chat, that's totally fine, but feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt with any questions or comments or things that you'd like to share. I believe that we have, I don't know which member is serving at Safe Harbor, but I know that we have at least one person or one site that is a domestic violence shelter, and I think Hope's Wings also might be represented. I'm just not sure if they're here today. So you all might have, specifically those sites might have members that have things that they would like to add, and feel free. So again, my name's Whitney. I am the Director of Development at the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky, but I did used to work at the Kentucky Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They are now called Zero V, and they were gracious enough to share this presentation. They weren't able to be here today to do this presentation themselves because they are busy with Domestic Violence Awareness Month and a board meeting this week. So, but they were kind enough to let us share this information with you. So I'm just going to run through it. And I think that this is important to know with the folks that you are working with and encountering in your sites as you go through service this year. It might be something that you refer back to, or it might trigger something that you may have already encountered with the folks that you're working with. So today we're going to define domestic violence and understand the dynamics of domestic violence, how to connect to resources, what your responsibilities might be if you are a mandatory reporter, and that probably will only apply to the folks that are actually serving at domestic violence shelters, and how domestic violence connects to housing. If you're familiar with House Bill 309 and VAWA protections, then this might just be a little refresher. So defining domestic violence. Now, I don't want to read this whole thing to you because, again, you'll have access to it and you can see it on your screen unless you're joining by phone. So intimate partner and domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors. It's all about maintaining power and controlling, having control over another person in an intimate relationship. And I think sometimes folks might confuse or equate domestic violence with any kind of abuse in any kind of relationship. And for definition's sake, it's a little bit different. So we would get calls when I worked at KCADV about, unfortunately, things like child abuse or familial abuse, and it was not defined the same as intimate partner or domestic violence. So this is just something good to refer back to about what the actual legal definitions of domestic violence and intimate partner violence is. It's as much about coercive control than it is about physical violence, and we'll talk about the different types of how that coercive control is used. So a quick statistic, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And that's been about the same for a while now. So here are those types of violence that I just referenced. So there can be physical, there can be emotional, there can be sexual, there can be financial, and there can be social violence when we talk about intimate partner and domestic violence. And some folks think that you have to fit within a certain box to be a victim of domestic violence. And we know that those of us that might know somebody or maybe you've experienced a form of domestic violence or intimate partner violence yourself, we know that status as a domestic violence victim is not dependent on your sexuality, your religion, your culture, your socioeconomic status, your age, your ability, your race. It affects folks that fit in all of these or none of these categories. It does not discriminate based on any of these that are listed here. Domestic violence is often referred to as a public health issue. So here's some more statistics, and this is why we want to educate and let folks know that this is something that we want to look out for as you're encountering and working with the folks in your service year. So 60%, those who experience domestic violence in that category, 60% are more likely to have asthma, 70% are more likely to drink heavily than those who have not experienced intimate partner violence, 70% more likely to have heart disease, and 80% are more likely to have a stroke. And just saying those out loud might not feel like that much, but if you really think about those numbers, like, wow, those are incredibly high percentages of folks that experience those adverse health effects because they've experienced intimate partner or domestic violence. It also increases the risk of suicide attempts, sleep disturbances, PTSD, depression, and substance use. So again, it's a public health issue and something that we want to be aware of, recognize, and try to get some resources to. So how and why does someone use violence against their partner? So just like victims and survivors, people who use violence have complex identities as well. And the use of violence is a means of power and control. That's, generally speaking, that's the bottom line: power and control, coercion. So here are some things. This is a pretty general list of things that you might look out for with folks that are that you're working with, or maybe folks that are just in your own personal lives. It's a pretty good list, I think. So as you are working with folks and after you've reviewed this kind of bullet point list, it might be helpful for you to refer back to and think, oh yeah, we went over this, and these are some kind of red flags for me to think about. So excessive jealousy and possessiveness, poor impulse control or explosive temper, someone who's degrading to their partner. They objectify women or men, seeing them as property or sex objects. They're rigid in their beliefs about their gender roles, in general. Forceful about sex. They sabotage or obstruct the victim's ability to work or attend school. They're cruel to animals. They have a history of family violence. They blame a victim for everything that's happened, or they're gaslighting or making a victim question their own sanity. So as you're having conversations with folks that you're working with, and if someone's making comments and referring to anything on this list, it's definitely a red flag and something that you might want to explore further. And we'll talk about that as we go through this presentation. So something else to be aware of are how societal institutions have continued to build oppressive frameworks and reinforce domestic violence and intimate partner violence by continuing the power and control dynamic. So if anybody wants to speak more about this, I would love to hear from our crowd. And again, I can't see the chat, so if you're typing in that, sorry that I can't see it. But some of the examples listed here include the court systems and law enforcement, child welfare systems, capitalism, and poverty. So these are big systems that we have to work within a lot of times for one reason or another. Does anybody want to explore more about how these systems could be continuing these big words, the oppressive framework of continuing the power and control dynamic? Does anybody want to take a stab? Nobody?
I can. It's Holly.
Go for it.
Okay, so in some of my past work history, it can be challenging. So I used to be the domestic violence clerk for family court where I used to live. And then after I left that job, I went and was a child protection social service worker. And our judges in that county made at least one social service worker sit in on the domestic violence docket. And that was in case they felt like there was a neglect case or something more going on, or if, children had been exposed to domestic violence between their parents. Or a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever the case may be. And so we would if the judge felt like something needed to be called in, we would have to write down notes while we were actually in the courtroom, and then step out and actually make that call to start an investigation. So I just kind of wanted to share that. I don't necessarily want to say if I agree or disagree with that type of structure. And, that's just one county that I lived in. And that's how we unfortunately got involved sometimes in people's lives. And that can be very hard for someone who is already going through a lot. And then having, child protection come in and just, you just kind of feel like you're under a microscope, basically.
Right.
So I just wanted to share.
That might be a case where the whoever's experiencing domestic violence in that home might be on the cusp of getting things in order to leave, and then that happens and it's back to square one, or it tips off her abuser, and it makes them really angry because they've now lost control of the household and they're having to work within the confines of the child welfare and court system. So things might get worse. And now this person can't leave, and it might be too late for them to leave. So it's, they could manipulate the person to say that they are the ones causing harm to the child in a dependency, neglect, or abuse case. So that's a great example, because you're kind of hitting those top three and maybe even that fourth one there: the court system, law enforcement, child welfare, and depending on the socioeconomic status of a family, whether or not they are in poverty. So that's a really good example. I won't put anybody else on the spot unless you are just dying to share an example. I'll give another second. Okay. Y'all are a quiet bunch. I think I would just emphasize that I think in the beginning of the year, there is some talk about barriers and the folks that you're working with, and how barriers can hold somebody back. And this is just one other thing, because when the pandemic happened, domestic violence and intimate partner violence saw a spike. And I'm not sure statistically how much that has, how we have recovered. And I'm not sure recovered is the best word to use, but just be aware that these systems have definitely not really changed a whole lot to keep up with always how best to center a domestic violence or intimate partner violence survivor. So just things to keep in mind as you're going through your service year. So now, how do you support somebody who maybe has experienced domestic violence or intimate partner violence, and this might not be what you signed up for, but if you're curious about what you can do next wise. I think these are good tools to have. And we're not doing this training to say these are things that you have to do, that you should do. They're just resources to have for you that are available. So don't ask why victims choose to stay. Ask why people use violence against a partner. And a statistic that's not written down in here, but that I'll share with you, is that on average, it takes a domestic violence or intimate partner violence survivor about 10 times to finally leave their abuser. So that might be, those 10 times might look like packing a bag and making it to the front door, or packing a bag and unpacking it, making phone calls to family or friends, making a call to a shelter. Whatever those 10 times look like, it takes a lot. And that's on average. So for some people, it might be 20 times before they finally leave for good. So there's a sobering statistic for you. So if you are working with someone, what if they disclose that they are experiencing intimate partner or domestic violence? Some things that you might say are acknowledging that they opened up to you. Thank them for sharing their experience with you. I'm sorry this happened to you. You don't deserve this. This is not your fault. And thank you for trusting me. You don't have to pry. You don't have to ask for more details. If it's something that they're not comfortable with sharing, you'll be able to tell. And this could go, for your personal life too. If someone has in your personal life has opened up with you and shared something with you, it might catch you off guard. And I think this is good knowledge to have for those situations too. Your responsibilities, I had mentioned in the beginning that you most likely are not a mandated reporter. Those are typically only folks that are staff or employed at healthcare settings or shelter settings. So you should not have to worry about this. If you're curious, then you can reach out to us afterwards and we can confirm. But there is more information that you might need to gather if you were a mandated reporter. So a little information about trauma-informed care. It's an empowerment-based approach. So it was not looked at from this lens, but I think it's a great shift that has happened in this sector. It rehumanizes the experience of dehumanization. So shifting from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. So trying to put the power back with someone who has had that power stripped away from them, and letting them talk about what's happened to them. Welcoming some just, again, humanization of the folks that you're working with, or that DV staff and shelter employees are working with. Recognizes symptoms as survival strategies. So not accusing someone of you should have left earlier or those kinds of things. Offering a holistic approach, integrating all of those things there, the cognitive, emotional, physical, spiritual, and relational domains, and recognizing that we're not just one of those things, we're all of those things. Normalizing human response to trauma. Cultural competency is a big piece of intimate partner and domestic violence. All survivors are afforded the presumption of innocence, worthiness, and competence. So kind of hitting back to that, why didn't you leave before? You should have left prior to that. Maintaining that survivors are innocent of harm that has happened to them. Survivors are worthy of the time, energy, and resources. And survivors are competent to make decisions for their own lives. So recognizing that maybe we wouldn't make this decision for ourselves, but the person that you're working with is capable of making the decision that they feel is best for them at that time. And I think that's something that goes across lots of sectors, something that we have to sometimes step back and say, well, this is not necessarily what I would do, but I'm not in your situation, and you know your life and what's best for you moving forward. So you may encounter someone who's experienced trauma that has profoundly affected them, and this could impact how someone tells their story. You might be someone that has experienced trauma yourself, and you might be able to relate to how stressed your brain and your body are. And even if you haven't experienced a major trauma, even when you're just stressed about something, you can tell when your body is stressed. You get tired, you might get sick more easily. So you might think about that experience and magnify that if you are trying to identify with someone as you're going throughout your service year, or even someone in your personal life, and how you can better relate to someone. Their memory may be disturbed, so you might get frustrated. How could you not remember something? This was a defining event. But someone who's experienced trauma, their body and their mind is trying to protect them, and their memory might just be locked away for now or forever. Their thoughts and feelings and judgment and health, all of those things may be affected. So all of this can impact how they communicate with you. And if you're someone who's experienced working with folks who kind of fit these bullet points, then you can think how it's difficult to communicate with folks who fit this bill. But you're resourceful, and building trust and coming back and asking simpler questions, or maybe talking about something else, can continue to build that trust. And I feel confident that you can find answers to the things that you need, and just might not be in that moment. So I'm going to show you a map here in just a second of which program will connect you depending on where you live. But each shelter and program in Kentucky is a little bit different. So if you can reach out, kind of get familiar with the program that's closest to you to see which service they provide, which ones they don't. You can save their crisis line number, learn a little more about what kind of shelter they offer, what kind of legal and court advocacy, case management, all these things here, housing assistance, job search assistance. Even if you're not in the same county as the main shelter, there are still outreach advocates that serve the surrounding counties. So I think it's the next slide. So I think this map's a little bit blurry, and it's got the old logo on there. So again, KCADV is now 0V, but you'll see that there are 15 shelters throughout the state, and they serve multiple counties. So even if you are there in Southern Kentucky and Bethany House Abuse Shelter is what serves your area, but you're not near Pulaski County, there are still outreach advocates that serve those surrounding counties. So same thing with Oasis and Owensboro, even if you're not in Daviess County, they're going to have outreach advocates that serve those surrounding counties. So I would get familiar with the phone numbers, the websites. It would be helpful to have those as a resource for you to share with folks that you're working with. And also, 0V, formerly known as KCADV, is a resource as well. If you're not sure where to send somebody, maybe they're on the line, on the county line somewhere, they can help you as well. So protective orders are a little bit more in the weeds. I won't spend a whole lot of time on here, but it is available for you to look at if you're interested in how these work. They are civil actions. There's no prosecutor involved with protective orders. So EPOs are for close, emergency protective orders. EPOs are for close family members or people who live together. Interpersonal protective orders, or IPOs, are for people who have been in a dating relationship or who have been victims of sexual assault or stalking. So I think that's maybe the one takeaway some folks don't always know that difference between EPOs and IPOs. Not saying that you have to, there will not be a quiz later, but something good to remember. This is just an example here. If you're in the Louisville area, protective orders can be filed at the Domestic Violence Intake Center in the courthouse. Not every county is going to have, a whole separate area, a domestic violence intake center. Louisville does. That's helpful. It would be great if every county did. Unfortunately, they do not. Petitions can be filed either in the county of residence or the county where they have fled to. So you don't have to flee somewhere and then go all the way back to the county where you came from. So that's helpful. And then here's kind of what happens after you file a protective order. It has to be reviewed by a judge. The other party is not contacted until the judge decides what happens next. There's a hearing. If the judge feels like it's necessary, there can be a temporary protective order put in place, and one or both parties you can have an attorney come, but it's not necessary to have an attorney. So here's something that I do think is very pertinent to everybody here, since we are from the Homeless Housing Coalition, Homes for All, Deviant Housing. So VAWA is House Bill 309 and Housing First are all pertinent. I will go over. Sorry, my little clicker's not clicking. So VAWA is the Violence Against Women Act. We're starting with House Bill 309, sorry. So House Bill 309's been around for a few years now. It does offer leasing protections for victims of domestic violence who have a court-issued order of protection. It prevents landlords from refusing to rent to or evict someone solely because they have a court-ordered issue of protection. You can change your locks if you need to. And if somebody needs to terminate their lease, they can give a 30 days written notice, and the landlord is not supposed to be able to submit a bad credit history against someone for terminating their lease with that 30 days written notice. A landlord can bar a perpetrator from the property or terminate a perpetrator's name from a lease, and then evict and deny that perpetrator access to the housing unit while still holding that perpetrator liable for fees, damages, etc., which can be helpful if a perpetrator is causing damage to a unit and trying to blame the domestic violence or survivor for that damage. So we are a Housing First agency, so this is just a reminder about why Housing First is important when it comes to victims of interpersonal or domestic violence. It comes without preconditions or barriers to program or housing entry. So it means that you do not have to be sober or in treatment or receiving services to have housing. And I think this is something that we don't always say. It doesn't mean that you have to have custody of your children either. And that's something that might be a little more DV related for folks that are trying to regain custody of their children. So just another emphasis on Housing First from a domestic violence perspective. So VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. These are leasing protections included in VAWA that prevent HUD program participants from being evicted, denied housing assistance, or terminated from housing assistance. It's based on the status as a victim or survivor of domestic violence, regardless of gender or sex. And that's all that I have. I'm going to open it up to any questions that folks might have. And if I can, I'll now be able to see the chat if anybody's typed anything. I will mute myself for a second if anybody wants to come off mute and ask any questions. And if not, then I will turn it back over to Holly for the second part of your number call.
Sonia noted something that's really good information to know, that domestic violence victims, they don't have to list previous landlords on housing applications. And then another member noted that something like this did come up in a case not too long ago. So I think that this has been very helpful. And thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that it's helpful to have. And again, with the name change, KCADV is always, it will still pop up if you happen to be like me and have a hard time with that name change. So if you Google KCADV, it will still come up, but they are now 0V. So if you are looking for additional information, you can Google, you can reach out to us. We're always happy to share resources, but that map of shelters and phone numbers is readily available on their website. And that's definitely where I would encourage you to start if you're looking for just immediate shelter and domestic violence resources. But thank you all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Whitney. I also think it's helpful to note too, for you all in regards to housing. Some of you may be using the Kentucky HMIS system. And if you are, just note that if you are working with an individual or a family, that is fleeing domestic violence, Kentucky Housing Corporation has made sure that no identifying information is shared. And there is a specific process whenever you are working with a client in regards to that. So yeah. Let me see here. I saw the chat. Okay, just thanks. All right. Give me just a second. We just have a few things to kind of go over, and just again, reminders and updates and stuff like that. So let me share my screen. And for some reason, the chat box, like Whitney was saying, goes away. So as I'm talking, if you would like to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to, or you can write it in the chat, and once I'm done sharing my few slides, I will see it. So hang tight for just a sec. Okay. Can you all see my screen? I think you can.
Yep, I can see it clear.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm on my phone, so that everyone should hopefully see.
Okay. So this is for everyone. Again, you all have the ability, if you would like to utilize this benefit, you can enroll in the Member Assistance Program. It's free. It's you have unlimited phone mental health services. So does anyone in your household. It is, again, voluntary and confidential. The provider is All One Health. Something that did come up because we did have someone try to enroll. You can either use our program name, Homes for All. You can use Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky, or and now I should say now you can also use our acronym HHCK. So just keep that in mind if you do choose to use this benefit or utilize this benefit. The reason why I wanted to share this information again is while I was on leave, and first, let me just go back and say I was on personal leave last week, and it is so nice to start the week off with you all. I know that we're not together, but it is very nice. Even if it's just your name on a screen, it is very nice to see that. But anyways, the member assistance program, they shared some resources that I think could be useful, not only to you, but maybe individuals that you are serving or working with, or maybe a coworker, or, you know, a family member or a friend. And I will share these links out whenever we send out our recap email tomorrow. But it's just some resources for staying emotionally healthy and managing your stress in time of a crisis. Again, the member assistance program is confidential. There's no cost. You can enroll in it by the 1-800 number or by online. But I did want to just share this with you. You know, some of it, if you're reading it, I hope you don't find it to be silly. I think it's very easy to kind of just get caught up in everything that we have going on. But, you know, we want you to take care of yourself because, you know, if you're not taking care of yourself, it's hard to do other things. And, you know, the holidays are always, they can, no, I shouldn't say always, but they can be difficult for some people. It's very difficult for me. So I am one of those people. So I just know that there are some, you know, and cold weather, seasonal depression, that type of thing, you know, falling back. I hate when the time changes. And so I really appreciated that MAP did share these links. And I just wanted to share them on with you all. You'll have the links after we send out our recap email. You can bookmark it. You can print them out if you'd like to share them with people that you're working with, or share them with a family member or friend. You know, let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you, and here's some, you know, healthy ways to kind of get through something that's going on in your life. This is just another reminder that site visit information has been sent out to your supervisors. So hopefully they have been talking to you about what your availability is and their availability, and finding up some dates that match so that we can come see you in person. We love visiting you all. We wish that we could see you all every single day. But again, we just like to visit. We're going to check in with each of you individually and then together. So if your supervisor hasn't brought this up to you yet, you can be like, hey, Holly shared this during our monthly, you know, training call. Do you want to sit down and get our dates together so that you can fill out that Google form? So let us know if you need anything. This is another way that we can hopefully provide any support. Talk about successes, talk about challenges if there are challenges, and hopefully, you know, the rest of the year goes great. And again, we just like to visit. It's so nice to just be out and about. It's one of my favorite parts of this program, and seeing you all. It's kind of cool to see you all, you know, in your groove, and, you know, you've got your workflow going on, and just kind of seeing how that plays out. This again is just another reminder about the Kentucky AmeriCorps Accelerator event. It is still the same information. It's in Owensboro at the Convention Center. The training will kick off on the 14th and 15th. We will have rooms to check into at the Hampton Inn on the evening of November 13th. Again, this is, required for direct service members. We we always invite our Vista members to join if it works out, and they don't have any conflicting dates or events going on at their sites. We do provide mileage reimbursement, meals, and lodging. The registration is closed, so if you missed that, unfortunately, EKU and Serve Kentucky, they're really on a tight deadline. So we were capped. Everyone who registered, we will see you there, and it's going to be such a good time. There's a lot of great training sessions that are going to be going on. The convention center is beautiful. It's right on the river. The river walk is beautiful. You're going to get to meet new people serving. Maybe it's your first time meeting people serving in our program, and then also with the other 20 AmeriCorps programs across the state. Hopefully we will get to eat at a good barbecue joint in Owensboro. And again, all of those meals are on us. Something else I would share, the hotel will provide breakfast, and then as training goes on, there will be snacks available, coffee, water, lunch will be provided at the convention center as well. And then, dinner, we'll all eat together. So if there are any, I will say, whenever I send out the recap information, I should have added this and I totally forgot until now. I do have the menu that with the items and food items that will be offered for lunch. So if you have a dietary restriction that we are not aware of, please let me know after you see that, and we'll make arrangements as we need to. I think I only just have one little reminder this is for direct service members. As you know, I know it says the 15th, but it's on or around the 15th, especially if that falls on a weekend. We want you to take that time off. Service forms, anyone new that you served during the month of September, or housed in the month of September, please send up those service and wrap-up forms. You can scan or email them to me and Valerie. You can take pictures and text it to us, or you can send it in the mail and we will get it that way. Just give us a heads up on that. And you can download the new forms. They are attached to every monthly email that we send out, so that you can save them on your computer, or print them out and have at your workstation. Same for volunteer reports. So get those. Or if you have anyone that maybe you served in August that you haven't reported on yet, just make sure you are staying up to date on and getting that information to us. If you have any specific questions, site visits are a great time to talk about that in person, clear up anything that you or your supervisor may have questions about. But again, if we're not going to be meeting with you until November or so, please just text us, email us, call us. We'll make sure that we get any questions answered. And then I just have one little update for our Vista members. While I was on personal leave, AmeriCorps Vista is offering an in-person training. It's only offered to first-year members. So if you're a returning member, I'm sorry that this opportunity, you didn't get this opportunity during your first year, especially if you started serving during COVID. That really impacted Vista hosting this guhuge in-person training for Vista members. It is in Dallas, Texas. None of the guidance or instructions is relayed to our office. So please, if you are interested, let us know. Of course, we want to know if you are attending, but more importantly, please follow all guidance and instruction that's given directly from Vista at the federal level. This is a training hosted by Vista at the federal level. The logistics and coordinating and everything like that is not on our office. So, the only information we get is the information that's provided to Vista members. So I would love to know if you are someone that's going to attend. I do believe the training is in December, but because it is such a large event, I'm sure deadlines will be happening soon. Yeah, just keep us in the loop if that's something that you're going to go to. And that's it for today. Does anyone have any questions or things that they would like to share with the larger group?
Cricket, cricket, cricket.
Let me see here. Hey, Noelle, just follow up with me in a separate email after this. That would be great. Okay, awesome. Crystal and Gracie said, can you tell who registered? Crystal, you registered. I cannot remember off the top of my head if Gracie did, but I don't think so, probably because of school. Is that what you're asking? You can unmute yourself if you need to.
Yeah,
Hi,
we're
Holly.
here.
We're both here. I'm pretty sure that I did because I just asked Crystal. The reason we asked is because I filled out the Google form
Yes.
and I was making
Did
sure
you-
that was the right thing to fill out.
Okay. Did you get an email from the EKU registration? I would check your personal email.
I have no idea. And I've cleared my email, so I'll probably have to go through the trash and find it.
Oh man. Yeah. So that's what we did. At registration. We had the Google, like our program Google form. And then once registration closed and we wrapped all that up, we just went ahead and registered everyone through the EKU website. Because it's one less thing you guys had to do, but it did ask for phone numbers and email addresses. So you should have received a confirmation email. If not, let me know and I can reach out to our contact with EKU and get that resent to you if you need me to.
What was the name? Like, what would the email be sent to me from? Did you say EKU is who it would be from?
I don't know who it comes from, but I would say it probably will. It should say like Kentucky AmeriCorps Accelerator. I would type that into your personal email and see what comes up.
Up there. Well, no, that's just what Valerie sent.
Okay, let me when we hop off of here, I'll be able to double check and make sure that you were registered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if nobody else has anything, we will hop off. Just put this hour together under AmeriCorps training. Once I get the recording downloaded to our YouTube page, I will send out that YouTube link because it's a lot easier to watch that way. So again, if you need anything, please reach out to me and Valerie.
Mm,
Oh, yeah. Thank you,
Oh,
Sonia.
hi Holly, it's me,
Hey.
Michael. It's usually Michael and Ashley, but Ashley's out for the next 2 days. So
Yeah.
this isn't really related. But I mean, it's just a question in general why I have you here. So Thursday and Friday, unfortunately, I had to miss. I had shingles, right? It's crazy.
Oh
I'm
my
only
gosh.
31. And so like when I did my timesheet for that, I put, I did not serve sick. Now, do I need to like send in some kind of documentation from the doctor? You know what I'm saying? Like, because it was just so easy, and normally,
Right.
it's like you got to give a leg and an arm to be like, hey, I was at the doctor, and I was like, man, this is just too easy. So I was just making sure if I should like, am I good on my end or?
No, you're good. Just get up with Chris, and if he needs your doctor's note, just give it to him. Just whatever protocol HDA follows in regards to
Okay.
like sick notes. That's good
Okay.
with us too. As if it's an extended period of time, so like say somebody has like an injury that's going to put them out for 2 weeks, we would want documentation for that. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And see, they're kind of cool like you all. They're just like whatever AmeriCorps does, they're like, you do that. So awesome. So I'm good on both ends. I was just making sure.
Yep. I think it's always great, no matter what, to always get a doctor's note because you never know. Yeah, I mean, I think that is always just great.